Go back to Serbia's hopeless position in terms of victory points for the game, I think. We're not positive, but because they are making a concentrated effort to make the Austrians pay for grabbing those 5 victory points. And here's the thing. The only way that Serbia can kind of regain control of this is to, A, kind of drive the Austrians out. But that's not enough. They also have to grab themselves some victory points, either up in Serbien or over here. I'm launching an attack here. It doesn't look terribly likely to do much. And here we have what's kind of a soak-off attack, an attempt to prevent this unit. Well, actually that unit wouldn't be able to without a forced march. So, you know, I think maybe we just won't do that. I thought it would make a good soak attack, but honestly, I think we're better off just launching here. We do not have a flanking attack here. We've got 4 of the 5 areas controlled, but the fact that they have two spaces fielding their own, protected by their own units, prevents that from being an issue. It's kind of funny because historically, I think the Serbs actually did reach most of the goals. I don't know if they made this one, but they ended up taking Belgrade during this campaign and then abandoning it. And that's worth a pile of points. I'm left kind of scratching my head as to whether or not, you know, the historical situation gives you a relatively balanced victory point thing, except I do know that the Serbs pushed into Sirmian already, I think, if I looked at things right. Anyway, I don't know how much we're going to get to play with this because there's huge heat coming through. I may actually fiddle around with, like, using a different memory chip and trying to play something else at the same time, depending on how hot it gets. But yeah, it's good to be back to something that at least maps to sense. Common problem of walking away from a game for a few days is taking effect here. So, a little clunky, not really remembering the rules exactly. That's not that big a deal. More forgetting what I'm trying to do. In the case of the Serbs, hey, you know, I wanted to dig in here and I had some dig-in markers, I noticed them. So I just put that down because those units didn't move and I know that was safe. I would have actually liked to have extended the line down here or something, but I'm not positive I didn't move that unit. So, and if I did, it would have been a lot of movement points. Over here, the attack was successful, but then I realized this combined unit was combat ineffective and it couldn't have launched the attack. I'm going to cheat a little bit in favor of the Serbs and allow that. I actually thought a terrible result had happened where they ended up disordered due to the attack. An attack they shouldn't have been allowed to make, which, you know, raises other moral implications of like, well, that's what you get for cheating. But, you know, in this case, I don't know how big a difference it made. They managed to force the Austrians out. The Austrians probably wanted to leave anyway, so it's just kind of gosh, you know, we got some really great go shape going on here. This is horrible. This kind of thing is nice, and if I could extend further, but no, this is just terrible, and it's clear in the game it's terrible to get clustered in like that. It's one of the things that I like about Go is that, like, these really horrendous things and decent things kind of work, and this game actually reflects them better than most. Some of that being the reserve. Go allows you to do something which you can't just do here, which is throw units behind the enemy. throw pieces behind the enemy. But in essence, the defense against that looks a lot like putting pieces in reserve. So there's a lot going on here that I actually like from, I don't know, an aesthetic point. Anyhow, this was not successful. This was, and now we go to the counterattacks for the Austrians, and I really don't know. This is one core, so I can't throw it in with these and try to make some kind of big attack on this. So I could keep attacking that, but I would rather pull out, to tell you the truth. I've gotten my gains on that side, I think. Here on the clear terrain, I need to check that, but otherwise we're probably just saying goodbye and going over to the Austrian turn, which I'll pick up maybe tonight or something. It's supposed to get fucking hot today. It was supposed to yesterday though too, so I don't know. Doing anything else in the turn's pretty much over. Serbs are down to one of those kind of insurgency units left. They lost another one this turn, but they got a division in its place, so division's better. How did I make that mistake? Again, it's the information tracked over here on these little cards that you don't really usually have to look up. And I just forgot that something had gone combat ineffective. You know, maybe if I hadn't paused in playing to go play some really painful Euro, I would have remembered that. But maybe I wouldn't, because I do walk away after every damn turn, and you know, it's or every half turn at the very least. It's hard to remember these things, and most games, when something is that beaten up, there's some kind of bright warning flag sitting on top of the map to tell you that you got a problem. And you get so used to not checking these because they don't really matter until post-combat, unless the unit is combat ineffective or worse. And I understand you wouldn't want that information sitting on the map for your opponent to see, but the opponent's not allowed to paw through your pieces for some reason, even though there's basically nothing to see there that they can't acquire the information of, except the strength loss markers. Those are the only thing. But I really don't understand like, these serve to hide the quality of the forces, and if you put the strength loss markers under those too, I guess that would be a step too far. But yeah, it is a burden that is likely to cause mistakes, and that's all there is. The Austrians are launching an attack up here to try to prevent that entrenchment from being built, and I guess digging their own field works down there. Not doing a whole hell of a lot of trying to pull out of here. I don't know what the hell, you know, is going to happen there, because we got basically the 6th Army runs across to here, the 5th Army up to here, and then whatever, you know. So those are the main divisions. Core divisions, well, we shifted things around a little bit in order to support them. Couldn't get all these units into the line because of stacking restrictions for an attack. So, you know, I mean, there's a huge difference that can be formed by, like, and this is true in so many games, the deformations in the line, whatever. It happens a lot in operational games in ways that I think don't really reflect what's going on. It's one thing I kind of like about in the mountains, there's a limit to how many units total can attack. I actually kind of feel like the difference between a 2-hex side frontage and a 3-hex side frontage attack is often overemphasized in the game. So in this game, you can put 50% more against something that exposes 3-hex sides, and it's just this little nub. And what's that mean? Is that correct? I don't know. You know, if you're talking about a real angle in the line, yes. If you're talking about some deformations that happen sometimes, maybe not. If you're talking about a hanging flank, yes. And maybe more times than not, it applies. So, whatever. Trying to remember what else made me. There was something that made me very happy, but I forgot when. Well, I went downstairs and forgot about it. And now I'm not. I vaguely remember being happy, and I don't know what to say. Okay, it's the Serbian reaction. I marked a couple of places where I want the Serbs to counterattack. Here to try to disrupt things, and here to make that withdrawal a little bit more painful. These technically shouldn't be on the board yet. They're not any kind of commitment. It's just letting me remember a little better, which I find kind of useful. But on to the fighting. They're kind of putting the hurt on the Austrian army, but not enough. Both here and here, I could have forced a retreat. This one's not too important, I think, but over here, this could have been of some value pushing him out. But on the other hand, I'm sorry, this one, because it would have gotten rid of, if I had done a more intense combat, I could have pushed him out, and that would actually put an interesting threat in place. But there's still a threat. Coming up this way, there is some potential that this, no. Where is, yeah, this is my core. That the core headquarters could get me supplies up this way if I can shift things, especially if I can shift those Montenegrins over to cover. I don't have enough troops to do it with these two forces. Like, I'd be exposing myself and getting cut off myself. But I could cause some serious problems, maybe back here, or by trying to come around and just undermine the position if things work out well. And I don't think that changes too much depending on whether I get this hex. I think I will be able to force that hex eventually anyhow. Over here, not much value at all. Here, the Austrians did their attack, prepared assault, etc. They took the hits. It's just morale hits across the board, the CER effect. Basically one level where, you know, some die rolls didn't come out well, like, you know, an 8. Pretty close to standard, but I definitely am seeing the impact of giving the Serbs the correct proficiency rating modifier. That was a major thing, and I think that's got a lot to do with why the Austrians are winning. We do have victory points. That's just the 1 per turn for Sabak, which is just not going to go away. And I mean, you know, I screwed up. I made the Austrian army significantly better than the Serbian army at the beginning, when it should be the other way around. That 1 point in proficiency is a major difference. It doesn't really look like it. You know, when you look at the chart, it's like, maybe some minor modifications, but they sure do build up. And I think the Austrian advance would have been halted long, long ago. We're seeing the Serbs really kind of putting some fight up. So I do want to play a little bit longer. I may not finish the scenario simply because victory, I think, for the Austrians is assured, but I do want to play it on a little longer just to kind of get a view of more of the impact of that. You know, could the Serbs have turned that Austrian advance around? And the big thing is, if they couldn't get a lot of, you know, if they're not getting victory points early on, then they keep trying, right? And they keep battering themselves worse and worse on the attacks, as they did here. And they have that expensive must abandon the plan or can't move the Fifth Army from trying to get to here. Now that's gone as well. So I don't see anything that's going to prevent the Austrians from just kind of sitting on the points that they have. That should be the end of the turn. Serbs desperately swapping forces around to try to keep this line in something like good shape, and this location for that matter. as well as pushing the 15th Corps or whatever back there. Over here, I don't really have much capability to launch my attack. I gotta get those Montenegrins up here to try to do some kind of outflank, but I think the impetus has largely stopped. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But I need this supply line, which means I need to protect at least this, you know, I really need both those hexes. And if that's the case, I need to kind of shift my forces slowly, and it's just going to telegraph, and it's not going to happen very, you know, in very much time, and or there's not going to be a lot of room for me to maneuver around and downgrade whatever the Austrian defenses are there. Guess that's about it. I could see someone who might argue, hey, all this shuffling because I'm pulling units off the line, putting new units in, putting units into reserve, and swapping units around in a way that seems reminiscent of some of the activity that happened in the Der Weltkrieg series over there. I only have the one game of it that I really disliked. Well, but there's a difference. In that game, basically you were shifting strength points around to make sure that you had an even number of strength points. Here, you're doing something that actually is telling the story, which is that you're pulling units that are beaten up out of the line to rest them. Actual units actually being rested, it's an additional level of detail. I don't think anything would be lost in Der Weltkrieg if you just created strength point markers and shifted them around on the lines and didn't track them by unit. The capability to detach forces. Sure, you might be abstracting away a little bit, there might be causing some problems, but overall you'd be saving so much work for almost no impact. Here, you could make the same kind of argument of, well, you know, you've got units in the back, as long as you have like forces in reserve, you should be able to like keep your forces in the front constantly supplied or something like that. You could make some kind of rule like that. Honestly, I think you'd have just as much fiddling to do that, and you would lose some of the story. It means something to pull a unit out and put a different unit in. There's so much distinguished between, you know, the combat effectiveness, the proficiency, which is pretty much by army, so we won't worry about that, the strength points, artillery differences, etc., that there is a fundamental change to actually pulling a unit out of the line of meaning. On the other hand, tracking these, I'm a great deal less convinced that that's doing much. Again, every now and then on defense, especially if somebody fucked up and didn't think about where their pieces were going to be at the end of the turn, because you've got to designate them here, and it's your movement in combat that determine where you're going to end up. And yes, you know, to some extent, you could try to make an argument. You could make an argument, not just try. You could make an argument that, yeah, you don't know how the combat's going to go, so you don't know where it should end up in terms of which corps it's in. And that's a valid argument, but it happens very seldomly that you should have been in this army instead of that one, or this corps instead of that one. I found some odd wording, so or the resolution to it. So these guys only go up to 8, and I've been using 2 counters to represent more than 8. The actuality is the extra numbers are over here. It doesn't really matter. I'm digging in with the Austrians over in these hills. I was having a hard time finding anywhere where they want to set up a counterattack this turn. Kind of thinking I want to squeeze in there, but that would be during my turn. I don't have the movement points to do it right now. Actually pulling some units off the line to recover them because things ain't so hot. Moved a unit that I had lost track of. Didn't realize I had gotten last turn. Hey, reinforcements. They take, I'll never notice them because they're away from the center of attention. So I don't think there's going to be any counterattacks, which means the only real battle is going to be the Serbian assault here. This is actually a really an interesting situation where the Serbs have they managed to pull a unit off the line to back here. Swapping a good condition unit up to the front here, and then this is an exposed position. The Austrians could have attacked it, and I tried to find some way to do so, but honestly, I couldn't come up with anything that was really decent. Like, I mean, first of all, I can't move from zone to zone, so I'd have like one crappy unit that could move forward, and it just didn't seem worth it. That's like a combat ineffective Serbian unit, but it's big enough that it scared me away, and so we're not seeing anything happen over there. Serbian attack is incredibly effective. I got a +2 E retreat 2 result. The retreat 2 result causes a strength point loss. The E caused a CER loss. The +2 with a huge amount of artillery. I fired 5 artillery shells into this thing. It's not in the mountains. Ended up, and it wasn't that high a number. I mean, it was like 11. It wasn't the highest number that I could get to. Ended up not causing an additional CER loss, but still, it could have caused like the thing to become, well, -3 CER. But they escape. You know, they're out, and on their next move, they're going to be able to pull that force out, and I got to try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with it, I guess. It seems to me the best thing is to cover over here and try to push harder up this way with that 5th Army, but I'm just, you know, I'm not seeing any need to cover back here. It's too hard for the Serbs. The Serbs can't pull units off the line to make an attack there. And I don't know. Looks to me like we're still continuing the Austrian offensive, but it's slowing down pretty hard. Getting pushed out of here doesn't really matter too much. I got my points, I got my goal, but it feels like I'm losing something, and I'm really not. I'm gonna try to get a little bit more in. Having a really hard time playing. I'm not sure why. The heat is definitely an excuse not to. And I don't know, you know, Saturday is always hard on me in terms of recovery. I usually get a little bit in then. This is Sunday. And it's Sunday morning, and I feel like, you know, at some point earlier this morning before I went to sleep, I had been napping all day Saturday, so I thought I would come up here and do it, but I've just been reading and kind of playing with hallucinations. So let's get started with the Austrian turn. At least get that out of the way. I mean, it's not like I just ended here, so it's not like I'm going to end the video there. The thing is, I can't play downstairs because I'm playing this, or I can't play something on video. I guess I could set something up and just say screw it, you know, and come back to this when the weather's cool. See is that the Austrian 8th Corps has been carrying the brunt of the attack up here, not gaining much, and it's kind of wearing down. And the question is, am I in a position, and I kind of have to peek to see, am I in a position where I'm doing equivalent damage to the Serbs? And I just take a picture of, you know, the units that are there, and I think I'm not. And I think this is how it should have been up here, where the fighting kind of started, was it's more expensive to attack. You know, it should be. You should do what you can with maneuver. Unfortunately, because the combat proficiencies were swapped, I saw totally different results to begin with, and now the Austrians are having some difficulty moving forward. I do have some additional units coming in. Nothing too big. That's part of the problem. Those littler units, I mean, 2 of them, that's the equivalent to a division, but I don't know. I randomized my choice here of a kind of all or nothing oomph, moving into here and just trying to bust through that hex before the Serbs get a defensive line in place. Remember, their defensive line is a slow process. They get a couple of these every interphase. Once they get that line in place, I don't think I can break through very easily. But I also don't think that I'm getting a lot of traction where I am. So I think I'm going to be pulling back, trying to hold with my decent units a line in case there's a counterattack. Try to recover my units and then see what turns up. The 13th Corps is in much better shape. And if I can launch an attack with them, I can come around from the south with the support of the, 15th Corps, which is also kind of beat up. Not finding anything like traction anywhere else. Pulling some units back to strengthen them, whatever, well, that's going to give the Serbs a chance, and it's what I did, but that's going to give the Serbs a chance to recover a little bit. I had the numbers up here. I could have pushed around this corner and tried to bust through there. That might have broken the whole front open. However, I'm winning. Risking everything on that maneuver doesn't seem wise, even though, you know, there's this desire to keep pushing and get to Belgrade, or at least cut Belgrade off so that the Serbs have to do something about it. Get control of the river further onward. And then down here, I had a hard time creating any kind of defensive line at all as I switched the 13th. I'm not sure why, into covering more of the territory that the 8th was covering. But that kind of throws into question the supply train for, what is it, the 15th Corps down here. And the possibility of the Serbs curving around. I'm not sure what good that does, except telling the 15th Corps you can't play right here anymore. You're going to have to shift up here. We're at the end of our supply line anyway, so unless unless we move a 6th Army train way away and basically cut these guys out of supply, there's no way, right? I mean, I could shift them over here, and that means they could play from here instead. But there's very little opportunity for me to stay in supply much further than I am. So they're not going to make major gains in that direction. It's got to be the river line that I take. That puts me on to the Serb counter move, which I can't imagine much happening in. It looks like the front is kind of devolving, although they may make a push down here. The Serbs take the offered break. I had battered units down here and along here that really could use. The idea of continuing up here doesn't look like it's terribly valuable, and we'll see, you know, if the Austrians keep withdrawing and shifting upward, that changes the flavor of things. There's no real need to pursue these guys in the mountains. So I think the only exciting thing is the victory points, which is just the continuing 1 point for taking Sabak. And that may well be it for today. I'm starving and have little hope when it starts getting above 90 up here, it's not pleasant. And I have other things I can do. So and started playing a little bit more because, you know, although there's no point to playing out these games, I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of this. I mean, I get more enjoyment out of reading and more peace. I have to do something, and whatever, you know, at least there's some duty here. I shifted the Uzis over with this attempt to try to, you know, fuck around up here. Okay, fine. Serbs, hey, Drina is able to recover some CER. But I start looking along this line, and the fact that these units are sitting in the hills makes them really, really hard to knock out. I can do kind of attritional attacks and hope to grind them down, but that's going to just cost me shells. And because of the fact that this is mountains foothill, anything that's in that mountains category, you can't really hit with a lot of force. You're only allowed to attack with a division and a quarter. Now I can get a division and a quarter, well, I can get a division on it easily. The enemy has about a division, and that means we're looking at about the same strength. We'll be looking at 1-to-1. It could be a prepared attack to 3-to-2. It's not a good exchange ratio. You know, maybe something will work, maybe something won't, but it doesn't seem worth it. It seems better to try to pursue over here. Right up against the 5th Army, I can't do shit. If I could get myself enough loose pieces, which doesn't look likely, I mean, there aren't really reinforcements coming in, the Serbs might be able to push across into Serbien. Certainly I don't want to make that attempt right now near an interphase, because the interphase is where, hey, you know, the Austrians are going to get 4 victory points on this interphase. But if I let them bust in further, they get more. So maybe I want to try to plan for this in a later point. Try to cross the river. There's not really any defense here that can stop me. But it may be a cost that's too great. On the other hand, it's a way to get victory points. And victory points are something that I'm behind on. I need 9 to win this. It's a 9-point variance for this scenario. Now, do I have the victory condition somewhere? Yeah, you have to have 10 or more. And it doesn't really differentiate between different levels of victory. So the game almost asks you to play a binary victory conditions type thing. Get the enemy below 9, which is probably the best that I can do with the Serbians, given the length of the game remaining and the fact that the Austrians are going to be collecting 1 point per turn for Sabak. I'm not going to be able to get that ever back, and which makes it incredibly valuable. And then, like, you know, 4 points per interphase if nothing changes. And it's really hard to figure out anything to do. I'm just swapping units around. It's a painful process because I have to shift them through their core. You know, first core is in charge of recovery, which is why it has a few units. And, it has 1 unit left. It's got 2 units that are kind of in the background that are garrisoning, whatever. Got to put them somewhere. They're in first core. But this is because second core is full. And then third core here is also full, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm at the point where I kind of would have to put some units in first core if I did get reinforcements anywhere. Of course, I'm not getting any more, so that's just peachy. But yeah, it's really hard to find anything. I can't find any attacks I want to make, except, no, don't want to do that here either. We're on a defensive line. And I kind of feel like calling the game at this point. I mean, other than some sort of vainglorious stab up into Sirmian to get some victory points, it doesn't feel like there's much that Serbia can do. And again, some of that has to do with the fact that the Austrians were kicking butt. But some of it also has to do with this situation is just not one that's built for, a very mobile war happening. And the fact that I'm looking at nothing but 1914 and a set of victory points that I have to achieve, and that's it, as opposed to, something like Der Weltkrieg, where each of the campaign boxes basically gives you the whole war in that front. And now, you can try to plan and you can try to see, okay, well, there's nothing that can happen right now. That's okay. There were quiet parts of the war, whatever. Maybe I'll be able, maybe something will change that allows for a different outcome in the long future. I'm not seeing that happening here. The Austrians are getting some additional forces. But again, they're not the ones who are losing the game right now. Whatever. My screw up is part of what happened. Anyway, I'll play out the Austrian recovery, but I just feel like I'm doing a lot of tedious bookkeeping type stuff without really much happening on the board. And without a feeling that, it's not providing much story, because I'm demoralized on both sides in terms of being able to gain any ground or do anything. I had those army goals, the offensives, I had something to aim for, right? That felt like the seasonal campaign objectives that you set up in La Grande Guerre or something like that, where, I got something I can do. I don't know. It may just be that I'm not in a state where I'm interested in playing a war game right now. Almost nothing changes. The Austrians shift a little bit over here to try to react, doing some recovery, but I feel like both sides have kind of given up on the potential of something major changing. Now again, I've still got the thoughts in the Serbian mind of trying to do that expedition out there. That will at least reduce, if it's at all successful, it will reduce the amount of total points that the Austrians have. But I don't know, where are these things coming in? That's kind of the question. I guess we'll see very soon, but I don't have the will to keep moving pieces right now. The Austrians are going to make their attempt to push again now that they've recovered that 8th Corps as much as possible. It may be too late, though. But trying to punch this way is not working. The river line is what we need. We got another unit that we loosened out of whatever this is, Semlin here, an important town. But we got reinforcements for it. We don't want to pull that artillery off. It's worth victory points if we don't have it next to Belgrade for the entire game, and that's something we don't want to give up. Although the attack got up to the 3-1 level, and there was overwhelming artillery advantage, almost enough, but the Austrians took the only losses on this, a couple of CE levels. And we're going to do something. We're going to take down this bridge and start to build one. I think cutting across here, now that we've oozed over, well, actually, better to build it here where my unit is, huh? I guess. I don't know. Nah. We'll build it here. It's not going to cost me to shift the unit. But yeah, we're trying to dig our way in towards there. One thing, this little boat, I don't know if these ferries have a special rule on them. Because, limits of 1 force per movement phase, yeah. they, it seems to me that they should only work for the Austrians. You shouldn't be able to run that ferry if you don't own both sides of the river or something like that, but whatever. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway. What else? We get our victory point for the turn. We push into the interface, and I don't know if I should take care of that. I feel a little fuzzy. The thing the interface is showing is that I'm definitely not pressing hard enough with the Austrians, because they received 4 replacement points. They were able to use 1. I have no march units that I've removed that I'm aware of. It's possible there's some in here, but I don't think so. And so, you know, I'm exceeding my total amount. Now, for the Serbs, they haven't exceeded their quantity, and I didn't get any Montenegrin ones, but for whatever reason, I didn't put them down on the board last time, so I just threw them down this time. But yeah, we're kind of in this. Well, I'm obviously not pushing hard enough if I'm over, you know, the total amount of replacements that I can keep. But on the other hand, the Serbs also have not really been eating theirs up. Now, I don't know. I think I must not have added them. They should be there. They had none that they needed to expend. So basically, there's not much fighting happening, and that's what's going on. But the loss of strength points is not the only means by which fighting kind of degenerates the units. They take the CER losses, and I tend to be exceedingly cautious about, oh, my units are getting mauled and chewed up, I better start pulling them out of the line, which is what the Austrians did. And yeah, I used a die roll on that, but then, you know, now we're continuing to launch attacks. But anyway, here we go into September, and the Serbs will be up. And well, now I guess the Serbs are on the offensive, oozing their way down here, building some more fortifications. They're using up all their fortifications right away. Try to hold the line as much as possible, sending a division into place to try to cross the river. That could get stopped, you know. I mean, a unit could move across from it. I've got units in places where maybe they're not that important, like here or here. So yeah. And then, you know, it's kind of a bad time, because at this point I'm moving next to the river. The Austrians actually have a unit that's spare that I was planning on throwing in for my assaults. But now, gosh, maybe I notice and go defend against that. Or maybe I don't. Yeah, but I had to wait until after the interface so that I could start building entrenchments. And because, why? There was a reason. There was a reason. I don't remember what the reason was. I also don't remember. I don't think I gave victory points for the 4 points that the Serbs were supposed to, that the Austrians are supposed to get. Don't think I did. Don't know for sure. Hard to remember those kind of things. Per turn victory points, when they don't happen every turn, are hard to recall. And the fact that, like, the normal ones only happen on the Austrian player turn is kind of weird too, but I can get kind of used to that. I don't get used to the interface ones. So on to the Austrian reaction. On the Austrian reaction move, but the Serbs actually probably should have dropped a prepared attack marker across here just to prevent the Austrians from moving into there. But now that there's something there, I may attack it anyway. I actually probably had the movement point. Well, no. I would not have had the movement points to do a prepared attack because it requires that you start the turn next to it. Okay. But I'm probably able to do an attack, actually. Because that does not cost movement points. So I'm looking at 14 to 3. That's 4 to 1 to begin with. Now, that 14 drops down to a 10 to 3, so that's only 3 to 1. And 2 shifts to the left, with a minimum of 1 to the left if there are other modifiers. So yeah, or if I'm attacking from multiple directions. So yeah, that may still be a worthwhile attack to hit this weaker unit right now. I'm not going to be able to, well, I would actually be able to drop a prepared assault. No, I can't drop it on my reaction move. So a couple of hits against this might allow me to cross over. What's the problem? The problem is supply. But I'm allowed to supply 1 hex across the river without a bridge. So I don't have a lot of extra units to throw in to fight over here, but by expanding the attacks over to there, I may be doing some good for myself. I may also be launching an attack down here. They're actually remarkably effective, and they're going to start building their pontoon bridge. The Austrians will complete theirs up here. They actually destroyed the unit here. I threw those gunboats into play because they should have been able to be there. But whatever. Anyway, Serbs have crossed the river. I should get a river crossing marker. For their units, which weakens them, but that's okay. Those actually go away or are reduced by 1 level at this point at the end of the turn. And there's really more over here than the Austrians can usually deal with, so I may have to shift forces over to cover the Serbian sector. I don't think the Serbs are going to get very far. They don't have a lot of extra units, but whatever. They were also successful here, but I don't want to advance there. I've got this little ooze line going in. I did not cause anything of importance there, just a retreat. Didn't get any hits on them, but I did actually completely destroy that unit. It took a strength loss to begin with, and then it didn't have, I don't remember what the result was, but it didn't have a terrible check, but it ended up getting a bad die roll and failing that as well. So it took 2 step losses. That's all that that regiment had, which is more than most do, and is just dissolved at this point. That's going to put me onto the Austrian reaction to that, and I got no idea what the Austrians are going to do about this. I think they're going to try to cover and block that thing, but they don't have a lot of units to cover it, and they do have some excess, though, over here. We'll see. As I start moving the Austrians and digging in down here now, covering up a little over here, trying to cover this area. Now, here's what's a problem, and what I just ran across. This army group, Serbian Banat, there's a core associated with this. I think maybe that's the army group one. Jeez, I don't know. Now I'm worried. Now I'm worried that there is not a core associated with that. Which just means that these units are all individual and can't really support each other. because I do not see a core train for that. This is an army rail-only access. So yeah, that actually, there is no core, which is kind of problematic. And I don't have another core I could put under in the 5th Army, but I could put a couple of these units so that they can support each other into the 8th Corps. And that'll allow me to reinforce into here if the Serbs try to bust their way through. I would like to do something similar here. I can't. I'm out of range of the 8th Army, or of the 8th Corps stuff, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could extend the range. I'll let them try to get across first. It doesn't look like they're set up to do so. Austrians not only are, again, I shifted over back to the 8th Corps because I had shifted them to this thinking that was core quality, and it's not. So there's not much I can do there. But with these guys, I am continuing my assaults there, hoping to get a breakthrough. If the Serbs are going to fiddle around and try to take other stuff, hey, maybe I can gain more ground. Digging in everywhere along this line. Just, block that down and say we're not going to give up that far, And we're getting one victory point a turn off this. So, I mean, we're not going to get below that 9 points. It's just, will the Serbs be able... They got 15 points here. They got another 25 here if they could win back down here. But they really can't. And there's enough there to stop them. And so I think it is over, but there's still some interesting crap that could happen. So I want to see, what this kind of oozing causes. But I suspect we're not going to get to the end of the scenario. And, I'm gonna call it before we get there. And if I look at the historical, when did things kind of end? Good question. Got well, 2nd of December is when Belgrade falls. So, I mean, there's time to get there. And the points are kind of unfair because I did completely make things too easy on the Serbs. So, the line is further forward than it should be. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. And the Austrians then leave Belgrade. I think by the end of the game, right? Where do they have here? Belgrade's evacuated on 14th of December. What? So, I'm not sure what drives that. I don't recall there being any big withdrawals coming late in the game. Yeah, so all the withdrawals already have happened, and the Austrian army, for it to get forced out of Belgrade, to me that means they pretty much have to be in a position where they can no longer defend anything like a line without the river protection. The Austrian attack failed. Caused a little bit of damage to the Austrians, no biggie. For the Serbs, I mean, I have a capability to launch an attack down here, but it's not good. These guys are in the mountains. Yes, I have them surrounded, but there's a reason I went up this way and attacked up here, is because, well, maybe I could gain some purchase. The problem, of course, is I don't have much. These guys should have moved. Here. I don't have much capability to ooze anywhere, right? And it would be pretty damn easy for the Austrians to throw a piece down or whatever and prevent me from making any ground up here to try to attack here. And without controlling the roadway completely, and because the Austrians are right on the front along it, even if I push them back, I've got to have units all along the road for me to be able to maybe try to push closer to Sarajevo or anything. That just doesn't look possible. I don't think there's much possible up here either. I don't think that there's much left to this game for anyone to be doing. But that's been kind of the problem all along is, the only time that things were really breaking open was the Austrians have more force, and when I was accidentally giving them too high a proficiency rating, they were pushing forward at a fair pace. That was beginning to slow, and then when I realized what I was doing wrong, it is kind of like a brick wall right now. Yes, I'm cutting the Serbian shells down, and that's one good reason not to launch an attack here, because nothing good can come of it. So in terms of victory points, the Austrians get another point. This is just sort of an inexorable... I don't see how you can prevent them from getting this, which to me means... that they're probably almost guaranteed to win. I mean, not just this scenario. I mean, not just the situation where I've cheated, but in this scenario in general, I don't see much chance for the Serbs to cut across. They're not that much better, and they don't have the forces. And as long as the Austrians play it safe, I don't see too much trouble. The only thing that could get in the way is that Fifth Army having to make it down to Valjevo, which they probably would not have done without the cheating. But I think they can cover Sabak, if they abandon, what do they pay for that? It's not a whole hell of a lot. It depends on how close they get, really. Let's see what the pain is. Yeah, shit. I gotta turn my fan off to be able to read the damn rules. And I need the fan on because it just gets too hot up here. But let's see what I got here. So Sabak, every friendly victory player turn. Yeah. That was one thing I wanted to check up. And the other cost, 10 points would be a big deal. If I can't get any closer, that's even more problematic. And you're allowed to abandon, you have to do a certain number of attacks. I don't remember how many are. Fifth Army has to do 5 mandated attacks before it can abandon. Somebody in their review was objecting to this, This is a very World War I thinking, though. Did you try hard enough? Did you try to get there? Okay, if you hurt yourself enough, we can stop. But there's sort of, and in 1914, obviously, less than anywhere else in terms of making that kind of decision, abandoning a plan would have been a bigger deal at that point than in any other. But as you see in La Grande Guerre or something, there is a cost to abandoning your plan, and there's reasons you don't want to do it too early because it frees up the enemy to do some sort of counterattack or something, which might give them an advantage, actually. So there's reasons to kind of drag out your war plan as long as possible. Oh, I forgot to mention. So we had a bit of fun today. There's guys down there who have been here for a couple of days. it's not fall. Working first on trees near me and then across the street, but not directly impacted. I hate what they did to those trees. Those were beautiful, beautiful guys. But while they were across the street doing some work, there was just a thud, and I come out thinking they took down something fairly big, and the only thing that's there is this damn branch, which came down across my driveway. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure some of the work they were doing impacted it, but yeah, it's not a branch, it's a fucking tree came down. It was a tree that had already been taken apart, but yeah, I gotta do something about that. That's just blocking my driveway. But that's it for now. Realizing some of what makes this game, it's very, it's slow moving. You think 9 movement points, that sounds like a lot, but nothing costs less than 2. So you're looking at like 4 hex movement in the best of terrain, and you're looking at more like 2 to 3 hexes normally, which is much more constrained than most operational games that I'm used to. I guess that's one of the bigger things. It takes a while because of that. Like, I'm shifting Serbs up. I'm going to try an attack here. I don't know how well it's going to work, but I'm kind of out of options. The Serbs need to gain some victory points, and they feel like they have to get those hexes. They have to clear that out. So I'm sending a few divisions up that way, lightening up what's defending everywhere else. I don't think there's a possibility, no matter how many troops I throw in the mountains, of taking them. Because it's not the amount of troops. You can only get so many in any given attack. It would have to be purely an attritional type situation. And I'm not saying that that's unrealistic. I'm just... It's frustrating. But I imagine fighting in the mountains was frustrating from what I've read of the Austrian and Italian campaigns. Turns out the Serbs got away lucky. I forgot to put these away. They launched this prepared attack. It ended up 1-1. Shifted up to 3-2, whatever. Lots of artillery support for the Austrians. I got lucky to roll a 2 on my CER check. Basically, it was +3 both sides, which isn't terrible, but I'm lower on the artillery, so it ended up being a +2 CER check for me, for the Austrians, and a +3 for the Serbs, which... Actually, no, a +4 for the Serbs because of the quantity of artillery, right? No, +3. Okay, anyway. There was more of a chance. It was about an equal attack in reality. And it was foolish of me to do until I get more forces there. And as I push more forces, because it happens slowly, well, the Austrians are going to be able to push some of their defenses up that way. So this is not going to go anywhere. Just like nothing is really going to go anywhere now, I think. Not really sure. But I mean, you can look. Like over here, hey, there was a chance to maybe push up that way. Well, now it's cut off. What does that mean? It might mean some attritional combat. Maybe. I doubt it. I mean, I can get about as much as I can possibly get against either one of those from just one hex. The only way to take somebody out of places is kind of to surround the hell out of them and get that flanking bonus. Or to find a weak unit. And meanwhile, troops are being stripped off down here from both sides as they funnel their forces upward to deal with the actual potentially interesting stuff happening up in Serbien. All that oozing is not necessarily wise. Although these guys are in supply, they are flanked, which might make it worth making an attack. It's not a good attack, though. It's like 8, 14, 15. I can get... Nope, I cannot get all of that in. So I can't count this, Can I? Yeah, I can ignore counting this. I need to count this and that then. So that's 10, 11 strength points. The reason is I can't get more than a division and a quarter into this hex, so I can't include this. To 14. Now, I mean, this is the problem. Obviously, it's not even 1-to-1, which means, I'm not sure what we do. What did I say, 11 divided by 14, but it's not. It's not. It's 10, 11 divided by 14 plus, and we got to figure out what this is. I think that's foothills, but I'm not absolutely positive. So I got to work my way up the mountain chain, right? This is impossible. This is high. This is low. This is foothill. Yeah. Okay. So right. So I'm attacking into foothills, which means it's actually 2 strength points more. So instead of 11 divided by 16 instead, which gets me a 0.68, which is going to be down here at 3 to 4. Now, I could prepare attack, and I could get 2 shifts off of the flanking, and I think it's worth a try. There's no way he can get reinforcements in there. I mean, he could, but with a forced march maybe. This would be 10 movement points. 10 movement points, I can't get that many, right? And I don't want to roll on that chart. I'm probably better off taking the casualties. But anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. You know, it's just, it's a painful, it's a painful situation the Serbs put themselves in, but it may not make much difference. I thought I was pretty hosed, but I just noticed something. I was pretty hosed because I'm out of core and I have to move the 8th Corps over here to handle things. Well, that's not the case apparently. The K Corps is coming in, maybe not much of it. It doesn't look like, I'm gonna make sure that I have everything here though. 25, I should be getting 2 units. 23 a unit. Apparently I missed a unit is the thing. 21, 20, 18 is just 1 unit. Yeah. Turn 14, this turn, the very turn I needed it, within 3 hexes of the 29th Division, I was to get the K Corps. And that solves my problem, and I can undo some of this stupidness that I'm doing, trying to move the 8th Corps up across the river where I do not want it. This is a sign I fucked up again, because there was no core there. I had these loose units, and I pulled one into there and defended with it, just because it seems fucking natural to be able to reinforce and defend with stuff. One of the few cases where the core boundaries actually made a difference, and I fucked it up again. You know, I cannot, like, there's so much fiddling with this and so much stuff that I can't handle that I lose the few places where it actually comes into account, because I've kind of abstracted it away as it is. And this leads me more and more to wonder, do I even want to fucking deal with this system? I mean, I'm considering Twilight in the East still. I've got the offensive à outrance, but is it just too much of a fucking pain in the ass to deal along core boundaries? And I don't know. I know it's irritating the shit out of me. The rest of the system, I kind of feel like I like. I feel like this particular scenario is painfully congested, and the terrain is annoying. I don't like terrain, you know. I mean, some degree of terrain is great, but when you get to this kind of mountainous stuff, it's just not going to create an exciting sweep of forces, and there's too many forces there's too much force to be able to create gaps easily, which means the mountains are all well covered. Yeah. Probably too well covered, to tell you the truth. Disparaging myself rather than the system there. I probably am investing way too much on both sides, given, you know, how much chance of any success there is down in those mountains. I just can't stop it though, you know. It feels like not much less, and it would fall apart. The one exception is I have things like fucking divisions down there, and the Serbs seem to think that they can gain, you know. Now that's tying up a lot of Austrian forces, but yeah, I don't know if it really, you know, makes that big a difference, because a bunch of light units, a bunch of small units up here, what's that going to do? I don't know. I don't know. Up instead diverting some of 13th Corps, which has too many pieces, really, or had too many pieces. I mean, legally had them. 8th Corps also has its limit, basically, but 8th Corps is doing something. 13th was not, so I'm dismissing a couple divisions up to the north to try to deal with this situation. And hell, you're gonna make me pay attention over there? Fine. I'll try to break through. I'll try to cross the river up there, and we'll see, you know, if that changes anything, because that could crush the entire Serbian line, basically, by outflanking it. And it's kind of clunky to remember is the way stacking restrictions work in the game. Which is to say, they're based on what you attack into. So with the mountains, yeah, sure, I can't attack with very much, but also the defender can't defend with very much. Now, once you get into the clear terrain, you can attack with as much as you like. I think there was also a 3.5 division equivalent in any hex. There's no real reason to see that, except if you're like in some kind of escape zone. Anyway, the Austrians succeeded here. I haven't gotten to this one. I'm really struggling my way through, because, I mean, you know, what happened? Well, I gained a hex and I got a CER effect, 1 point on the Serbs. It just doesn't, like, there's no feeling that anything's ever going to actually break. Sure, they're running low on ammo, and maybe I can, you know, I don't know, damage enough units on both sides that we start seeing losses that need replacements. Something we haven't seen before, really. But still, it just feels like, wow. And some of it may be a paradigm shift being required, like this idea of making shitty attacks that I'm anathema to. Well, this was kind of a shitty attack. It came out on the 2-to-1 table, which isn't bad. I mean, it doesn't seem terrible, but for me, World War I, I'm like, oh no, I gotta be up at 3-to-1. Not just World War I, most games. It's just where my mindset is. I gotta get myself up above 3-to-1 to have a reasonable chance. 2-to-1 means I'm taking too much risk. Well, you're not taking a lot of risk in this game, is kind of the thing. Everything's kind of incremental and attritional, so I don't know. I don't know if I can convert that easily, though. I mean, obviously, I haven't been able to. This was not a bad attack at all. Granted, I wasn't on a great table, but I got a good roll. I got like a +4. Oh, geez, I hope it wasn't with a retreat. I don't remember. Jesus. It probably was. Let's see. I was on 3-to-1, shift, and I think this is where I ended up. So yeah, the Serbs actually do have to retreat, which is the thing that I wasn't paying attention to. And that'll be into this space. We lose this, there's an advance. But in terms of losses, that +4, artillery was thrown in, got it up to +6. I roll a 4 and everybody's fine. Like, nobody took any hits. The Austrians didn't take hits either, so the fact that I gained ground is a big deal. That is the hard thing to do. I mean, causing casualties is the impossible thing to do, basically. But yeah, gaining some ground means a big deal. And now I have to figure out how to advance. I mean, there's the obvious. Let's just march in. But the thing is, I'm going to have to rearrange and reapportion my forces to get an angle in on this space, if that's where I'm attacking, or on this space, if that's where I'm attacking, which is not, you know, fortified. So we're gonna see some movement, and this is not good for the Serbs at all. This, on the other hand, turned out to be barely anything. But we may have to give up the river situation if our line's starting to collapse. The Serbian line breaking up near the river, that was a terrible result for them. That is stretching their line. We're running, and here's the problem. I mean, I could tighten it up and give up these entrenchments. But beyond that, the problem is I can't just, you know, I can't just give up this southern route. I need that. I kind of can't afford, well, I definitely can't afford to not protect these roads coming down, because that's where this is being operated out of. There's not another rail line that I could run out of back here. All I could do is run the Montenegrins. So there's a lot of space that I give up. Now, it doesn't get them to here, but remember, it's the column that's important, which is why I can give up space, but I can't give up these roads, and being stretched is not good. This is probably why historically the Serbs gave up Belgrade. You know, it's either save Belgrade or save the South. Well, I'm not sure the South is worth it, honestly. And so I think I'm going to start extricating myself, because I don't think there are more points for me to be getting from here. At this point, my bugaboo, the command structure thing for the Corps, is really causing me problems. I can't find the combined at all, and I'm doing this major shift to protect my north flank. I think I've got enough forces I can actually hold this line, but I started this withdrawal, so screw it. Again, I don't think I'm gaining anything back here, so extricating seems perfectly reasonable, although it will allow the 6th Army to sort of combine up in the north, and that'll be a danger. Plus, I've got kind of a compact position over here. Will I get such a position here? It's possible to actually cross here and draw supplies here. So I gotta protect more than I am right here. So I don't know. It may not be at all wise, but I may not pull back all the way, is what it comes down to. But if I'm allowing access to these roads, which it looks like I am, this becomes the production location. So, or there's this threat. You know, there's just threats everywhere. So maybe I need to throw the Montenegrins down, at least to help cover some of that shit. But anyway, right now I'm having a hellish time trying to find where my units are and how they should be allocated. Now, if I was doing this prior to any movement, it would be even more painful. On the combined, it had already moved up to the pontoon bridge. My situation's a lot better than I thought it was up there, so I'm going to stay across the river and keep that threat in place. Don't think the Serbs are that badly broken by any of this. I've lost another unit. Moravia 1 is supposedly somewhere in 1st Corps, and I can't find it. Same thing with the combined. I'm sure it's hiding under something. But this whole track down, try to figure out what in the stacks is where, man. And it does have an effect. It does have an effect. Basically, 1st and 2nd Corps can't cooperate. There's a gap between 2nd and 3rd, and that's nice. That delineates it well. I don't have to worry about any kind of cooperation conflict. But this piece can intercede on anywhere along the line. These pieces can intercede here, so, and here. This piece, so it would be nice if it was all one core, because then this could support all of these and this could support all of these. But instead, I'm going to have to break it into 2 core. And the question then becomes, which side does this end up on and crap like that. When the time comes, I'll just fucking forget and cheat anyway. Out the missing unit, it slipped its way down to because I was using first core as my place to put things that were recovering, and it ended up being kind of close to third core and was used as a replacement there. Right now, the Serbs are pretty healthy, except for the Samadra 2, which is over in the south and doesn't count. So yeah, we haven't taken any losses. So I'll just I guess try to hold this position. And I hope I got my alignments right. If I didn't, fuck it, I'll cheat. I mean, really. Just ran and was gonna try to order Twilight in the East for the fall sale. I've been holding off on it because it's a significant amount of difference. Plus, I am not sure how much I like this system, and I'm already invested in another. But on the other hand, once you get me with 2 games in a system, I kind of have to buy the rest. But I have mixed feelings because, well, there were a few copies left or whatever when the sale started, I guess, and they're gone. Which is fine in a way. Again, I'm not sure I really want to buy another game in this series. I'm half regretting Offensive à Outrance. This may be the decision that means that I don't try to play that though right away. I mean, I got that on kind of a deal. Hey, not really. I mean, it was cheap enough, but they're probably going to reprint it or whatever. But yeah, if I was buying another one, I would feel absolutely compelled to play more of them. But now I'm kind of like, yeah, I could do stuff that's more fun. I don't know though, because I'm kind of curious, hey, you know, especially in the East Front. The East Front is the one that interested me the most, but the 1914 will also, the West Front will also intrigue me as to, is it going to be as cluttered and annoying with the core? I suspect it is. I suspect it's just going to be worse, just a bigger version, a bigger, more complicated. So anyway, instead, apparently I was able to get 3 games. My first reading was that they didn't give the free game away, the free order away. So I thought I only got 2. Actually, at first I thought I only had 1. But then I hunted down, found a second thing that I had ordered, and now, yeah, it's the same as the normal sale. You get 50% off as long as you're in any pre-order at all states. So I bought some Combat Commander stuff, which I still haven't touched any of my Combat Commander stuff. I've played a game of Combat Commander Pacific, and that's what I picked up. But anyway, let's get back to this. Here I feel like maybe I'm doing a Saladin or a Mongol type trick. The Austrians can't come chasing me. They'd be giving up their defensive position if they completely leave them. So I'm twiddling around a little bit. If I run far enough, yeah, it's safe, but you can't, you know, the little bit that the disengagement is actually something I must allow them to do, because if I want to press them, I'm giving up my defensive stance, and I believe that would be a serious mistake. And the Austrians continue their pressure, pushing another hex here, and almost, again, doing damage. They had like a +6 to the die roll on the Serbian morale check, but the Serbs got away unscathed, but they lost the hacks, and that's a big deal. Now, I did not advance with this unit because it's getting a little beat up. Oh, that's the 11th gangbangers. They're at -2, and I just don't feel comfortable. They just took another hit. I don't feel comfortable letting units get close to, like, being disorganized, combat ineffective, any of that shit. And it's like, oh no, that's terrible stuff. Don't want that. I'm not sure. You know, that may be part of what, you know, why I'm not advancing as hard. It does seem like the Serbian line is breaking, and this is you know, it's constantly being shoved back. Not breaking, but it's constantly being shoved back. And I'm not, you know, I'm playing with the right rules now, I think, you know, in terms of where the die roll modifiers come from, the proficiency. And I don't know, it looks like a really tough task for the Serbs to hold. Now, more Austrian troops have come in, you know. This isn't the point. Like, the point where the Austrians kind of failed was, historically, was earlier, back when I was still cheating. But it does feel really, really difficult for the Serbs to keep their victory point, to keep the Austrian victory point total down. I'm not sure, because that beginning portion up here, I was applying a -1 to all those attacks, thinking that was bad for the Austrians, and it was slightly good, you know, it's just not absolutely clear. I think we're gonna stop this video after this interface, just because I've been really chatty and not getting much done. And again, the Austrians don't really want to pursue still. There aren't a lot of forces down here. I sent this guy down this way. Kind of have to guard my supply line back here. And I'm launching a whole bunch of attacks. 13th Corps is hitting here, 8th Corps here, and then we're attacking over at where the Serbs stuck their foot over the river. So that's going to be a pretty massive set of assaults. We can see, I mean, this kind of thing might start to change the flavor of the game one way or another. You know, maybe I'm taking too much of a risk with the Austrians because I have it in the bag, but I want to see what happens because, again, you know, I don't just play for victory. I play for, hey, look, this line looks weak right now. Let's just slam it as hard as we can and see what happens. And that feels a lot more World War I than, or a lot more, you know, anything really, then I think we're doing well enough. I'll just sit here and, you know, do well enough that I'll be able to get my pension once the war is over, or whatever the hell kind of thinking makes you say, I don't want to try to knock the Serbs completely off the board. Even though the Serbs had kind of a compact, well-defended line, minus, and I hope I didn't screw something up, I might have. No, I only sent a regiment in here. Because I'm not sure if that's part of 3rd Corps or 2nd. And they were able to reinforce it. The fact that the Austrians are hitting them all along the line, in many different locations, 3 different locations, and these 2 are really the key to that, means that I had to make some choices as to where to reinforce, etc. And I kind of did it at random because I can't tell what the hell I'm doing. Now, I'm trying to see because this is the first time it's really mattered what order the attacks might get done in. I don't know if they all get done at once and it's kind of not clear here. The big reason being that the sequence of combat I think they're done one at a time, which is kind of painful because that gives you kind of the blitz type capability where you take a hex and you make it harder you make the next hex a better combat. So I probably want to do this first because I might be able to get, if I dislodge them from that hex, I might be able to get I might be able to get a flank attack. Let's see how that works. If I hit this and take this hex, that's not gonna come because of the fact that you have to be, in order for your zones of control to count, you have to be attacking with the unit that's projecting the zone, and so that kind of gets rid of some of the problem. There's also the problem of, hey, if I take this hex, have I cut the retreat? And the answer is no. If I was here, though, I might have. So there's some times when you can still leverage the fact that the attacks aren't happening simultaneously. I was very worried that this system would try to say, hey, you go through each of the steps in the combat sequence for each combat separately. And that would be an impossible mess to keep track of because it's all fine while you're rolling the dice, but you'd have to keep on paper each attack, what's happening at it at any given time in terms of, hey, are the retreats all happening now? Now I make the combat effectiveness checks for everyone and all kind of stuff like that. And you'd have to track what the results of each combat were in that case. I'm glad that's not the case, but I could have seen it with this one because there aren't that many attacks, but there wouldn't be an easy way to track the combat results. Breakthroughs this time, and 3 kind of interrelated close-in combats is really fatiguing. I gotta finish up the turn though. I don't think the Serbs are gonna counterattack. I don't see anywhere where they want to. It's hard to tell because, maybe I could get something. I threw another division across the line here. I threw too many things in, so I withdrew some of the forces because they couldn't have been there, or they couldn't have helped the defense. But what that means is I'm kind of in a position where I couldn't have retreated. I gotta try to get out of there. Being across that river is not a good thing at all. One thing that I might do to speed up my exit is to start building another pontoon bridge over here into that hex. That'll allow me to get 2 forces out of there at once, now that I have 2 forces in there, which I probably should not have done. But I didn't want to be forced across anyhow. That means we get our 1 point for the Austrians. I'm going to pull the cav back, and I think that's it. Right, this was the Austrian side of the turn. I've moved the Kimji troops already or whatever. Okay, I guess that's the interphase except for the victory point part. And we're across the river here in the 14 hex. That's 6 more victory points. I mean, the Austrians are running away. Let's just see how much damage they do to the line. It's still interesting on that state. Reinforcement, replacement points. I'll look to see if anybody has any casualties. I don't think there are any casualties anywhere. The problem with finding the casualties is they're not over here. This can give you a clue where they might be. They're on the board. And of course, it would be easier to find things and fix them on the board at this point, as opposed to the CER improvements, which would be easier to fix as you're looking at the unit on the board spending its movement points instead of looking back here to see, is this unit fucked up? Honestly, I don't think that there's, as long as these things exist, I don't think there's a good answer. And those things have to exist to support the core assignments. So, whatever, you know. And they do reduce clutter on the board, which, you know, when you're looking at stacks like this, could be an issue. But for the most part, the stacking is pretty moderate compared to something like OCS or something, which can get some massive stacks of support units and stuff. Yeah, I do not think there's any losses, but I might be wrong. And I kind of, the Austrians again have not spent any of their replacements, so they're full up. They got 3 to spend if I find anything, and that's about it. I know it sounds like I'm kind of aggravated, and yeah, I am. Less about the game than about life in general, to tell you the truth. Oh yeah, and then the tempo, these defensive things. You collect these up at a certain rate. They're how many you can place on the board. I don't think they disappear between interphases, so you can save them up and go on a big dig all at once or something. But in a sense, I feel like they are the tempo of the game. If you've got a lot of these available, there's an incentive to dig in and defend in places. And if the enemy is digging in, you might have trouble and need to peel more forces off other places and need to dig in other places, like the Austrians have done over here or down here. Actually, they have more defensive structures than the Serbs do right now. I feel like there's something that could be done, maybe not with this game, but that these are giving me a hint towards a game that involves buying defensive structures versus buying war plans that can gain you, you know, victory points and morale or whatever. Sort of a bid and structure type, some kind of bidding structure or pre-planning structure. That could actually be a simpler game that includes this facet of how much are you on the defensive, how much are you on the offensive. Maybe something that would even work, you know, on the strategic level without going into ridiculous details. Not that I'm opposed to ridiculous details, but hey, I'm playing this. Anyway, I think we'll send this up, and I probably won't tell you if I find any strength markers lost, unless I remember to do it right now. I did a scan and I didn't see any, and I don't think there are any. I'm just not that kind of person. I don't like to fight. But in terms of I don't know where these naval squad replacements come from. Get them here? I don't know. Gosh, that's interesting. It's not like I've been using, you know, been damaging my naval squad, so I had to look that up though. But the one clear clue that the Austrians don't have any replacements missing is I probably would have cycled one of those March regiments in. Although maybe not, because these are easier to apply than you have to pull a unit out of the line and spend 9 movement points with the March unit, and then you absorb it. So, I don't know. But let me look up those naval reinforcements, see what the hell's up with them. I've been just using my boats where it's safe. Looking it over, I see why I didn't get it. I think there's just one for the game, and it's not reported anywhere. When a squadron returns after refitting, put it on the naval base backside up. Once per game while refitting, one squadron can incorporate a naval squadron replacement. So, to me, it seems like there's one chance to replace those losses. Now, if I'm going to be in hexes, so right now, there's a hindrance if I'm 2909, and basically the stuff near Belgrade. And I've stayed away from crossing those guns. But starting in game turn 19, if a squadron moves into an enemy-controlled hex, or a hex where the opposite riverbank is enemy-controlled, there's a chance I get destroyed. And frankly, these naval squadrons are useless if you can't do that. So the Russians are going to start sinking my boats. But that doesn't start until here. And I hope to make some more gains on the river before that. All right, we go up for real now.